Hello and welcome to the What podcast.
Yeah.
Look, that's what I'm talking about there. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Creech, and joining me today, now that he has finished recruiting 5 teenagers with attitude, Kyle Whitley.
Yeah.
What are you recruiting the 5 teenagers for attitude? Are they going to defend your house or something, or wash your car?
Probably cook some dinner.
Yeah, okay.
It's easier on me. It's easier on Erica. Like, if they're angry about it, they'll get it done faster. It probably won't be as good.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe that's good. 5 teenagers with attitude can clean my car or clean my house.
While they complain.
And I won't take their lip.
They have attitude.
And I'm going to tell them I ain't taking no lip. You get to work. Do this job and do it right.
We're excited to be back in studio today. A lot of stuff has happened. I mean, we recorded one episode last week to kind of get back in the groove for 2020 Iron Man, which came out yesterday.
For sure.
And we've had some great responses to that. One of our first deep dives into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Many
more
dives.
to come. Eventually, I'm going to convince you we're going to do deep dives into each season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. once you go back and rewatch them.
I don't know if I can do that.
I think you can. I believe
That's a lot of television.
I believe in you. Well, I didn't ask you to watch all 60 episodes of Power Rangers, but we're doing a deep dive into season one. I want to do 6 seasons of Power Rangers eventually too. So
one a year.
One a year, exactly. We'll catch up to them eventually. But a lot, Black Widow trailer dropped. Well, not a trailer, but a deep, kind of closer, in-depth look last night during the national championship football game. We saw the Morbius trailer.
Morbius looks good.
And it looks really good. And some interesting connections to the MCU possibly with Michael Keaton's Vulture showing up in the trailer and some posters of Spider-Man being labeled murderer. But it doesn't appear to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It looks like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it looks like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man suit at least. So
the one I saw, and maybe I missed the whole thing, I didn't see a poster. I saw graffiti on the wall.
Okay, yeah, I saw the graffiti. Yeah,
That's the Spider-Man
It was not
part.
a poster; it was graffiti. You're correct.
Okay.
And then tonight, this is for me, the part 4 and part 5 of Crisis on Infinite Earths concludes with an episode of Era and Legends of
I've got
Tomorrow.
to catch up on that.
Dude, Crisis is incredible.
Well, I knew it was going to be big,
dude.
and I watch every episode of The Flash.
So
usually,
good, man.
somewhere with the holidays, I got off because I'd even started watching Arrow again this season, knowing it was like final season of Arrow.
Final season, yeah.
And then it's going to tie into the Crisis of Infinite Earth. Like I was really excited about that, but somewhere in the long lines,
it's
I got
worth
off
going back and even if you haven't seen, like, I'm not a Supergirl fan.
I like Supergirl.
I like Supergirl. I just don't watch the TV show. I like Flash, but I don't watch his show. I like the Legends, and I haven't really watched a lot of their stuff either.
See, I was good for the first season of Legends, and I kind of fell off.
In terms of how well, knowing that they only have like an hour and really less than that once you add in commercials, like 42 minutes of screen time, how well they bring in so many characters: Batwoman, Supergirl, Arrow. So many references to the outside Arrowverse. Titans made a appearance. Batman from 1966 had a little reference with Burt Ward. They had a reference to the original Batman movie from 1989.
I'll have to catch up
on
this.
The Birds of Prey show that came out in 2003 got a quick scene. Constantine, which started on NBC, and now he's made a crossover to Legends of Tomorrow. He's in it. They reference Lucifer, which is a Fox television show. You gotta
watch it. Satan's everywhere.
I know there's so much, and I hope again we hadn't even done our spoiler warning, but there's so much. It's worth just like, even if you're not caught up on everything, to find the first 3 parts, and then after tonight, the last 2, just to see how well Smallville gets referenced.
I can't wait till we start doing these on YouTube just to show how excited Eric gets. He's very Eric talks with his hands. I talk with my hands in my lap, but Eric, if he's talking, his hands are moving.
Brandon Ralph, who was in, who was Superman Returns in 2006. He's the Atom in the Arrowverse and on Legends. He gets to play Superman again.
I have heard that.
Oh my god!
I haven't watched it, but I have heard it.
So good. So I'm super excited about that tonight. The Jeopardy Greatest of All Time tournament's going on. I mean, I don't know if you've been catching up with that. I'm a big Jeopardy guy. I kind of I just like testing my knowledge against stuff.
See, my knowledge for Jeopardy is I may get one question right, so I typically stick
against
to Wheel
these
of Fortune.
behemoths here: Brad Rudder, Ken Jennings, and James Holzhauser. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I mean, they're incredible, and I'm really surprised. Going into tonight, they have to win 3 games to win the tournament. They've had 3 matches, and Ken's won 2, James has won 1, and Brad Rudder, who's like won the most money all time in Jeopardy through tournaments and stuff, has not done well. So I'm kind of curious.
You know why? He's made all that money. He doesn't need to
do well.
He's like, I'm just here to make an appearance. They're paying me to be here.
Like Ken Jennings has gone up against him several times and has never beat him until this past week. So I'm excited to see how that's going to play out. If it's going to end tonight, or if they're going to have to go to a night 5 or a night 6, and maybe even games or night 7.
I'm more of a Wheel of Fortune, Price is Right guy, where I can just look at a screen and guess things.
I watched Wheel of Fortune.
Knowledge isn't my deal.
Watched Wheel of Fortune the other night. Pat Sajak's out with some kind of illness or surgery or something, and Vanna White's the one hosting. And I really like Vanna White. Don't get me wrong, but you can tell she is not comfortable in the host role. No. I mean, it's kind of awkward. She's trying very hard because she wants to carry on the legacy.
We should have her on the show.
We know someone who knows Vanna White. They're like BFFs.
There's a connection.
We have a connection there, so maybe if we're going to do that, I probably should start talking a little nicer about her hosting abilities.
She's going to come back and listen. Like, I'd love to be on the show. Wait a second.
That jerk Eric doesn't need to be on the show. Then I'm like, well, daggone. So.
You're not allowed on the premises. Me and Rickie will talk to her.
Oh, do you really want Rickie talking to Vanna White?
Rickie has more history in Vanna White than I do. He's probably watched more episodes than I ever have. So,
oh man. Anyway, so we're excited to start exploring.
The fun thing is we're not even talking about anything DC. We're not talking about.
No, we're not.
Jeopardy.
I mean, today's episode.
We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're not talking about any of those things. We're talking about something completely different.
Today's episode is. Harkens all the way back to our childhood. Again,
for sure.
I mean, because that's what we do.
You think of my childhood or our childhood, but mine. I think about it. This stands in the forefront of one of the major things of my childhood.
This was huge. We are talking about the first season of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
It's Morphin Time, folks.
It is Morphin Time, folks. We're excited to start exploring the Power Ranger universe. When I say start exploring, we're doing season 1 today, but eventually I want to do season 2. At least, because that's where the White Ranger gets debuted. I know we had a lot of comments about the White Ranger.
I have his action figure.
He doesn't.
And a doll.
He doesn't get introduced until season 2. I wanted to eventually get to season 6. I don't know if we do all the seasons, but season 6 is like the best Power Ranger season ever. That's the one that had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover,
which was not the greatest crossover ever, but it was one of the first.
It was one of the first crossovers that we kind of experienced as kids, for sure. But we're just going to do season 1 today. It's a kind of a departure from how we used to talk about television shows last year, where we would try to do a deep dive, not really a deep dive, but like a broad look.
It's too much.
And there's just so much that we couldn't really give a great. I think we did the best we could giving a broad look at a show, but I really like to get into facts. And, I use the term deep dive a lot because I really like to dive in and explore the history.
Eric's new word for the season.
Yeah, deep dive is my my one word, even though it's 2 words for 2020.
Put that on a shirt for Eric.
Deep dive, yes. If we ever do get popular enough to have merchandise, that would be great.
Get you a jersey on the back. Deep dive.
Deep dive. But I really like to explore deeper into television shows and the history behind it and the culture and how things come together and behind the scenes stuff. And with Power Rangers, you just can't do that when you're exploring the entire breadth of Power Rangers. So
that's true.
Season 1, we're going to be talking about today, and we are excited to start exploring that universe with this episode. But before we do that,
okay,
if you haven't already, listener, please subscribe to this podcast. We are on so many platforms, as we discussed last week: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, Overcast, Castro, Pocket Cast, Podcast Addict, and Radio Public. Make sure to search for What the What Media. That's all one word. And please rate and review us. We accept how many stars?
5 stars. Five.
Just like the number of Rangers on the original team.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Also, go ahead and follow us on Twitter, WTW_media, or join our Facebook group and find us on Instagram at What the What Media, all one word again. And last week we made a mistake.
That's not the first one, I'm
sure.
No,
it's definitely not the first one. we told you to go to youtube.com/whatmedia. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Well, turns out we don't have a custom URL for YouTube yet. You got to have a certain number of subscribers and some other stuff. So be on the lookout for that. So we'll start sharing that on our social media. And eventually, once we get enough subscribers, then we can get a custom URL, which will probably be What Media.
As long as one of you doesn't go steal it.
And if you go steal it, we will find you.
I guarantee you, somebody in Romania is going to be like, this is my time. They're going to have to owe me money.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a smart idea.
Maybe. Who knows?
Our bad. We messed up. So you're smart enough to go ahead and pay for it.
Anyway, stay tuned on that. And also, one more thing. We made this request last week. If you like this episode or any of the other 31 episodes of the What podcast, or actually this is episode 31, so any of the other 30. Episodes of the What podcast, then we are trying to grow the show. We want to get more listeners, and we need your help for that. If you like this show, please share this episode with at least one friend. Tag them. Tag us. Share the episode, and if you end up doing that on social media, we will give you and the person you shared it with a shout-out the next time we record, which will probably be in about 2 weeks.
Be sure when you do that, though, that you do tag your friend, but then you also tag us so that we
will
can know.
See it.
Because if you just tag them and we don't see it, then sorry.
We do have several of you who just shared stuff, but not with a particular person.
Yep.
So in a way, you're kind of sharing with all of your friends.
And we appreciate that.
We do really appreciate that because that does get out to a wider audience. But maybe just, if you...
Pick some people would like to listen.
Listen to us talk about the Power Rangers. Because...
I'm not I'm not going to say like football. Football's not my thing. So if you shared a podcast about football, I think that's awesome that people are doing it, and it's definitely needed. But I probably wouldn't go listen just because I'm not a football person. But if you shared something specific to me, that
said, "Hey Kyle, even though you're not a football guy, I think you're really going to enjoy the banter these guys have."
Sure, then I'd check it out.
Right?
If you were direct with me like that, then I definitely would probably at least go listen to it.
Kind of how I got into listening to Binge Mode and the Rewatchables. Mm-hmm. So anyway, if you could share it with one friend, we would be very appreciative of your help. And we'll definitely give y'all shout-outs next time we record.
Yeah.
On today's episode, we are diving into the first season of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Here is a huge spoiler warning for today's episode.
It's crazy that the Power Rangers need a spoiler warning.
You would think, but better safe than sorry.
I mean, I agree. I'm not saying you're wrong. It just throws me off to think that Power Rangers need a spoiler warning.
Yeah, definitely. Well, while the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is our primary focus, we may be going, my favorite word again, deep, possibly discussing details from any of the other Power Ranger seasons or other multimedia, taking into account the entire history of the franchise. With that in mind, Kyle, it's morphin' time. Originally in our script, this is where we were going to spout off all the dinosaurs, Dragon Zord, and then we would do them in order. Mm-hmm. It felt kind of cheesy when I wrote it down. Mm-hmm. So...
Well, that's what you could have had, folks.
That's what you could have had.
If we would have been, I started out the whole guitar thing. Eric could have been shouting that over top.
Mastodon!
Yeah, he got to,
But anyway.
But nope, he didn't do it.
Didn't do it.
Pterodactyl.
Did it?
Saber-toothed tiger.
Triceratops. Tyrannosaurus.
So we're almost there.
We're getting there. So anyway, the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is it's an American television series created by Haim Saban and Shuki Levy. Began on August 28th, 1993 on the Fox Kids Network. Do you remember Fox Kids?
I loved Fox Kids.
Fox Kids is so integral to our childhood. Mm-hmm. This fictional series follows events in the lives of 5, later 6 teenagers with superpowers, who were chosen by the wise sage Zordon to become Power Rangers in order to stop the evil Rita Repulsa from taking over the planet Earth. Those 5 teenagers originally, Jason, Zach, Billy, Trini, Kimberly, and then later on Tommy Oliver. The first season included 60 episodes. That's a lot of episodes.
I've come to find out now that we're doing this type of thing and we go and look back at things from our childhood, there's very few seasons for a lot of shows that I think probably had a giant amount of seasons.
But they have a ton of episodes.
Episodes per season is huge.
Like a typical network TV offering is 22, 23 episodes. Mm-hmm. There might be 24. A lot of our these kids shows just have 2 seasons, but in those 2 seasons, you had 70 episodes each.
At least. I mean, because X-Men, and don't get me wrong, X-Men had a ton of seasons.
Yeah,
but
they had 5 seasons.
And I guess the same way you're thinking about Power Rangers is it's not so much a season where we're used to seasons now where you get an episode a week.
Yeah.
Versus a lot of times, especially some of us Power Rangers just starting out, like
you had 5 episodes a week, Monday through
new
Friday.
one every day. Like they had to keep you entertained until they could start putting some stuff on repeat. Like,
Absolutely.
So I get it, but I never thought about that as a kid. I just thought about it was probably a ton of seasons, but it turns out giant seasons.
The first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and actually all the seasons, use footage from the Super Sentai series from Japan. This one particularly is Kyoto Sentai Zoo Ranger. And what they would do is take that Japanese footage for the major fight scenes, and then intersperse their own scenes for when they're unmorphed, and they would just dub over the audio during the Japanese stuff. So that's how they would create the show. It's basically on a small budget, little shoestring budget, which we might talk about later in our fun facts. And that's how they created the magic that is Power Rangers. They just took Japanese footage and interspersed like 10 minutes of American footage, and there you go. You got Power Rangers.
The funny thing is I hadn't thought about it until you just said that, but I remember probably like high school, at least college age, we would go back and joke around about that because as a child, you totally didn't notice that. At least I didn't. I was oblivious to the fact that this wasn't all the same movie or show, all put together. And when the Rangers talk with the outfits on, with the dubs, dubbing over, but no matter what language you're speaking, the Rangers talk with their hands a lot like you do.
Like me, yeah.
So as they talk, they move their hands all over the place with action and everything else. Spoil a little bit. They put out a movie we'll talk about sometime this year, I think, but they did that. And I remember I think maybe it's Billy, who's doing like backflips or something. And, so we used to talk about, we in a parking lot talking or be at Walmart and start talking to each other with our hands. And we do like barrel rolls and everything else, like across the room. Because we would talk about that. It's like instead of running across the room, you would take 20 seconds to do, 5 backflips across the room instead. I was never good at backflips or cartwheels, but you can fake it until you make it type of deal.
Definitely.
But fun times. Start talking with your hands more, folks. I'm sitting on mine about right now. But
talking about that a little bit, I remember the Zord footage. Every time the Dragon Zord, like if he was ever evil or like he would take that little that pipe and he would pick it up and put it in his mouth and crunch it. And they did that. Showed that same scene in so many episodes, and you could tell it was the exact same scene every time. Like his tail would do the little spinny thing, and it would just tear through that one log. It's the same scene over and over and over again. But as a kid, oh no, Dragonzord's gone evil, man.
That's all I care.
I hope he doesn't tear up that building again. I hope he doesn't eat that little pipe again. Well, he did.
I didn't care a thing about that, and I think there's part of me that probably realized like, oh, this is it. But I think it was just this is the intro. Here they come, and all of a sudden they're going to be there. I didn't ever think about, oh, this is reused footage that's shown every time. Like none of that
single time. Especially like when they call the Zords, that's the same footage every time. Single time.
But
they jump into the Zords, they might say something different, like in the dub over, like when they jump into the Zords. But it's the same footage of the Power Rangers jumping in their Zords every time.
I think the cool part of that is just as a kid seeing something cool like that. You're seeing these dinosaur robot type things coming across the screen. You're just mesmerized with that in general that you don't care that you've seen it a billion times. You get excited for that moment. It's one of those moments of the episodes where when it happens, it's not, oh man, here's the same footage again. It's finally I get to see that part again. Yeah,
definitely.
That type of deal.
Well, most episodes followed a typical procedure. Rita Repulsa would send a monster related to a problem that the Rangers were facing in their real life. Sometimes if they had like a food drive, she'd send like a really pudgy pig.
Yes.
The Rangers would then have to devise a plan to defeat the monster, which would usually consist of a battle culminating in the Power Rangers forming the Power Blaster, that's combining all 5 of their weapons, or if the monster was made to grow to giant proportions, the Power Rangers calling upon the power of the Dinozords to form the Megazords to defeat the monster. And then there's usually a lesson kind of learned after the fact for the last scene. I remember we talked about I don't know what episode it was, but how like back then, especially in the early mid 90s, TV shows that were made for kids kind of had to teach you things. There had to be like a life lesson, like I don't know, like pollution's bad, or stuff, So anyway, what are your thoughts on this season? Maybe some favorite moments or memories from this season.
It's honestly a lot of it is obviously it's the first season I ever got into it, but it hit at the perfect age. For me, what year did you say this came out?
1993.
93. So I was like around 5, and so I was already huge into Ninja Turtles. I loved the Ninja Turtles. I like Ninja Turtles more like Power Rangers, but it wasn't I like this and I don't like that. It was I love everything about this type of deal. I was noticing something. I've noticed it before, but it's like every generation or every different like time period of kids goes through something major, like, this is what's popular, so we're going to put this in everything. Ninjas were huge back then.
Yes.
Everything, Ninja Turtles started off the big kick where all of a sudden you had everything being about ninjas. Now, sure, they were included in other things, G.I. Joe, other stuff. But Ninja Turtles really hit it off big. Then all of a sudden they bring in Power Rangers.
Yep.
And 3 ninjas into the movie series. You've got multiple Ninja Turtle movies. You make a Power Ranger movie. Even I think Batman Forever or Batman and Robin. I think it's Batman and Robin. That one comes out and they're fighting ninjas, like part of like the crew they're fighting. So I remember that, but something about just ninjas, it's just always excited me, like especially because you were growing into it. I remember my cousin that's a couple years older than me. After school, we would stay with our grandparents at their work, and he took karate lessons. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world because he had this inside scoop to what I'm watching on TV. But I don't know. It formed my life. I remember those things. You had clothing. Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles were everywhere. But I remember this time period where you had Power Ranger shirts, Power Rangers lunch boxes, Power Rangers everything. And I mean, I remember the first Christmas, and I don't remember what year it is, but I remember the first time getting Power Ranger toys. I posted a picture on my personal Instagram today showing off some of those original toys that I got. But I remember I love that. In my mind, the other episode we talked about it, I thought they were 12-inch figures, but they're not. They're a little bit shorter than that. But they came individually. They each were in their own individual box, but it wasn't. It's kind of how like you see Barbies are in their slender tall boxes. This was in a bigger tall box versus a bubble on a piece of board or whatever. But I remember opening the first one, and I want to say it was Red Ranger or whatever. But I remember opening it. He's got this chrome silver belt. He looks like so expensive. And I go back and look down this morning, and it's like, okay, well, it really probably wasn't that expensive at all, to make. But as a child, I was mesmerized by this, and I don't think I'd ever seen the toys at that point. I watched the show. I loved the show, but I hadn't seen the toys at that point. So opening that up, you took your time that Christmas. You didn't rip through that. That was something very special to me. So I got that Christmas the Blue Ranger, Black Ranger, and Red Ranger. But I still have them today. I posted it earlier today. But same way, I had that. I had the blaster. I had some of the Zords. My mom, I was part of the fan club. I think you were at my house a while back, and I found that box and I was showing it to you.
You had a Morpher.
Yeah. The Morpher technically was its own toy. It didn't come in the fan club, but I had a Morpher that you could change out the little discs and be a different Ranger, for Morphin Time. Had that. I remember they had these gloves that were pretty much the Power Ranger gloves. It was whichever character would be a little bit different color on the sleeve or the part of the glove. But you would lay your hand over top of the other one and it would, make fighting sounds. It would make, or I think it was like little parts between your fingers, like if you pressed it, make karate sounds. But I don't know. They did that. They made all sorts of stuff. I think it may have even sang the Power Ranger song. I had a watch. But I remember the club. I think my mom probably got this from like QVC or something. Something stands out to me that she probably picked this up on QVC for me. But it was a Power Rangers club where you got a lunchbox inside of it. You got pictures that are like, professional pictures of the Rangers. You got a membership card, a personalized, well, not personalized, but it was a VHS that was like a members only VHS you got to watch. And some random other things like stickers and like a coupon to go buy stuff.
They would really promote this on the individual Power Ranger VHSs.
Yes.
Like at the, for like their commercials or whatever, like they would really pump up the Power Rangers fan club. And you mentioned all that stuff, and I'm just having flashbacks to the guy talking about it. I'm like, man.
Yeah,
so awesome.
And it came in this cool white box that had like the special Power Ranger logo on the box and everything else. And I remember I always loved their costumes growing up. That was the big seller for me. Is like I've talked about it a little bit with Batman and other superheroes, but I just love the idea of a costume and being something different, being a superhero and something else. And in this little membership club box, they had a mail off where you could send a picture of yourself off, and they would send you a picture back where you looked like you were dressed like the Ranger.
Wow.
I remember getting this as a kid and looking at it and be like, they will send me a suit. Because there was a sample of this little kid who's like wearing a suit. And turns out all it was, you'd send a picture and they put your head, a very, old version of Photoshop pretty much, and put your head on the Ranger's outfit. But I remember growing up and just wanting that so bad. I remember, we talked about the Halloween costumes, how you wanted to be the Red Ranger.
Yes.
And you ended up being the Blue Ranger.
Yes.
But I was always disappointed because you would go and it's not some full helmet that you wear. It's just like a front face
Little
mask.
plastic, yeah.
I remember wanting one of those helmets in that outfit so bad. Like, and the funny thing is now that like I couldn't afford it right now, but I could save up and buy one.
We could be Rangers at like Comic Cons and stuff.
But we would look horrible.
Yeah, we would.
Because it's all spandex.
It is.
Now, don't get me wrong. You're getting in great shape.
We're both getting in great shape.
You've lost a lot of weight. You're getting, you're at the gym all the time. I'm not. I'm making excuses and being lazy. But maybe that's a goal for us.
Yeah. To get slim enough to be able to fit into
wear
the
Power Ranger
spandex. And
there's part of me, though, and this is spoiler warning and jumping a little bit off track, but when they came out with the movie, when they had ninja costumes, I loved it. And they came out with action figures for it. I only had one of them, and I loved it. One of my favorite things. And we could do that. There's companies that make the ninja costumes, and you and I both could pull that off right now.
Pretty much. I'm a frog.
Yes, and I'm a falcon. So like,
nice.
If anybody out there wants to do, something special for us, we will take these ninja costumes for Power Rangers.
Forget Patreons.
Yes, we'll pay for the show. We'll keep doing this. If you want to buy us a Power Ranger costume. That's awesome. I'll at least just even take a helmet. Can you imagine like going to my office at work and there's a Power Ranger helmet just chilling?
That would be awesome.
How majestic that would be.
That would be fantastic.
But anyway, I know I've talked a lot about that. But it was just one of those things from our childhood that like...
I mean, this season was a cultural phenomenon. Toys, video games, fan clubs, media. Yeah. We talked about in the Christmas presents episode that I did under protest about me getting the Dragon Dagger, and the flip head action figures. And I remember... I was not in second grade. I remember going to recess one day, and I had only seen like one episode of Power Rangers at this point. And I wasn't like a super fan at that point.
Sure,
it had only been out for a couple of months at that point, but it had already caught fire. And I remember one of the girls in my class said, "Hey, we're going to go play Power Rangers.
Yes,
and we need And I was like, "Well, can I be the Black Ranger?" I'm like, "Well, no, Jordan's going to be the Black Ranger." I was like, "Well, fine. What Ranger am I going to? You're going to be the Red Ranger. You're going to be the leader."
And that never happens.
That never happens. It's like, and everyone had the ranger they were going to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's cool. I remember there were 3 girls who wanted to play, and 2 of them would fight over who would be the Pink Ranger.
I could totally remember that.
But we had one girl who was like, "Yeah, I'm the Yellow Ranger because she's pretty awesome." But everyone had their favorite Ranger. Mine was the Black Ranger. I think I enjoyed the hip hop Keto, and just he was kind of cool. I enjoyed Jason a lot too, but that was one of the things. But after that, like, as a kid, you're like, okay, you're being dragged into this social setting. It's like, oh, this is making me popular now. I'm the Red Ranger. I got to go back and watch this. I remember they had it on after school, like at 4 or 4:30, but they also showed episodes like at 7 in the morning.
Yes, they did.
And so I remember getting ready for school that morning, or some mornings, and watching the episode until it was time to leave. And I remember getting to school one day and said, "Hey, I left when Billy said like." I turned the TV off when Billy said Triceratops when he was morphing, and they were like, "I left when it was Jason saying Tyrannosaurus."
Nice.
So like we caught the first half and we missed all the Japanese footage. But, but I remember all that stuff. Just kind of like it was huge. I played the video games. I had the action figures. I had the toys. And it's something that I kind of, like, I didn't stay with it necessarily, like, super hardcore. But, like, I would get off the bus and I'd go home. And I'd be waiting for my dad to come pick us up from home. And we'd go cut grass. While I was waiting, turn TV on, turn Fox Kids on.
Yeah.
Power Rangers, And I did that for several years. Whether I outgrew it or not, it was still kind of on. I still kind of followed it. And, it's something that whenever, they added the seasons to Netflix, I went back and watched some of the more memorable episodes and some stuff that I didn't see the first time around.
Sure.
And, it's just one of those series that, I grew up with Ninja Turtles too. I love Ninja Turtles. I might be the opposite. While I love both of them, Power Rangers might be over Turtles for me.
And that's fine.
One of the things, though, talking about like favorite moments, memories. One of the YouTube channels I found on this, Linkara, Atop of the Fourth Wall. He did this great deep dive into a lot of the Power Ranger seasons. He notes the possible theme of technology versus magic, where the Power Rangers use technology to morph using the morphing grid. They upgrade their Zords, weapons throughout the season using technology. Billy's technology genius to create communicators, to fix Alpha, to teleport to Command Center via the Rad bug. Remember the bug that they had to fly into the Command Center? Whereas the villains used magic to create monsters, to create putties, to make monsters grow, to disrupt Zordon in the Command Center. Magic spells are used to create the evil Ranger, to drain the Rangers of their powers. I mean, just an interesting theme that I wanted to kind of.
I never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Like it's one of those really cool things when I started, like really kind of listening to information. I don't want to say deep dive again, but on like series that I enjoyed. This was one of the themes of the early Ranger episode or Ranger seasons, and eventually you'll see that theme kind of shift as it goes on, where they rely more on magic, compared to technology. The episodes that had some great stories had some of my favorite moments. I know we'll get the favorite episodes in a moment. Obviously, Greenwood Evil storyline is probably the most memorable moment in my fandom history because, there's a Sixth Ranger and he's green and he's evil. That shield though. My goodness, that shield. It's the only 5-part series in Power Ranger history. And even to this day, after 20-something years, plus, that's the only time they've ever done a 5-part series. They had all the videos at Blockbuster in 30-minute episodes, one VHS. So if you wanted to watch, all 5, you had to rent all 5.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. It's individuals,
individual episodes, one VHS. They didn't put them all on. No. It adds up to about an hour and 40 minutes. They could have easily put the whole saga on one VHS. No, they got that money. Got that money. I would beg to rent them all. And my aunt, one time I was staying with her in Durham whenever she lived there. She said you can rent 4 movies, and
so you rented all
4. I rented Part 2 through Part 5 of Greenwood Evil, and she was so mad. She's like, "We wasted this money on 4 30-minute, not even 30-minute episodes because of commercials." Season 1 also had the last episode of season 1 had the Green Ranger lending his gold shield to the Black Ranger, which made that Black Ranger suit just pop. And that episode also had the Megazord fighting underwater, which is really cool as well.
Yeah, it is.
I love the episodes and the moments that weren't typical and weren't really wrapped up in the most common ways. Like we talked about, the most popular way is Zord grows or monster grows. They called the Zords. They killed the monster with the power sword. That's how most episodes typically. And I love the ones where it wasn't like common. Where there was one episode, the introduction of the Carriers or Titanus. Had these memorable moments of Jason and Tommy had to work together. Tommy gave Jason his shield. Jason gave Tommy a sword, and they had to, kind of like use their teamwork to overcome these to get to these weapons, to get to the other Rangers to defeat the Super Putties or whatever. And that was really it was interesting because you got used to the cookie cutter, and we talked about how excited we would get about it. But the ones that were not like cookie cutter were the ones that were really memorable to me.
Well, it makes me wonder now, and I just did think about this, but is that why we got into wrestling?
It might be.
Because wrestling is very much like that, where it's changed a little bit over time. But back then, sure, storylines and whatever else. But as far as how a match goes, there would be your fighting. It would get intense. They would fight a little more. But once they put that finishing move on you, you were done. And that's how Megazord was. He put that sword on you. If he pulled the sword out,
power sword,
and swiped you, you were done. Same way with wrestling. They put that finisher on you.
Finisher out, and if you kick out, and then you knew you had something.
Yes.
But then
and the same way you had the random
follows the formula
where the finishing move didn't work, and all of a sudden your mind was blown. And you got really excited about that too. Now you've got matches that somebody put the finisher on like 10, 12 times just
because they can.
But anyway, that was something I thought about. You brought up a great point earlier. I didn't necessarily and it can I guess move into a certain topic or whatever, but I don't remember anything other than this and Ninja Turtles where we were like, I'm this one. I'm that one. I'm the Red Ranger. I'm the Blue Ranger. I'm the Black Ranger. It was never that, over other things. Ninja Turtles was that way.
I'm Michelangelo. He was the the party dude.
Yeah.
I'm Donatello. He does machines.
Yes. And we put that question out there for you guys today. It's, you know
got
what?
So many responses.
We did,
and some really unique responses too.
And I feel like it's just that phrase hits home for a lot of us that lived that through our childhood. Now I'm sure there's, our friend, their son Samuel is real young, I think 2 or 3, and he, I'm Catboy, you're Gecko, you're Owlette, and so it's cool to see that though. It's a new generation. It's a younger television show or younger kids show. But the same way that for us, that was exciting. Where I'm almost 33 years old now. I put that question out, and you've got anybody in a 5 to 10 year span that started responding. I was the Pink Ranger. I would have died to have been the Pink Ranger. I was this Ranger. Because we remember those schoolyard days of being out there playing with each other and pretending you were a certain Ranger. I don't know. It's just something about that nostalgic hit me this morning when I was at work, and you guys were responding out. I'd set my toys up, took a picture of my coffee mug that Eric got me. I don't know, just I had a big nostalgic moment this morning, just setting those up and just remembering times on the schoolyard of, running outside. Well, I'm this Ranger, and then being a little disappointed if somebody else already took that one, and.
I mean, I think it really just kind of speaks to, I guess, children. I mean, when we were children especially, but even now to today, like you mentioned, we have this thirst for creativity, and fantasy stories really play into that. Before our generation, there were kids who were riding the Millennium Falcon.
Sure.
Or, doing something Star Trek-wise, because I don't know the Star Trek references. But, I mean, there's always been this thirst for wanting to live out like I say, the fantasy, but like the the childhood dreams and the creativity that you see in some of these kids' shows. You look at those things and you see these 5 teenagers, or 6 later on, who were confident.
Yes.
Who who knew karate, who could dance, who could do gymnastics, who were extremely intelligent, who were able to conquer their fears.
Yeah.
And you didn't see. I mean, like you had like the comic, but you didn't. You even saw some of the insecurities, like with Billy, especially early on. Him having to he joins a karate class in the very first episode.
Yeah,
he's clearly his character's not a skilled fighter, but you see him morph into this one, this incredible fighter, literally through, in the episode when he morphs, but throughout the seasons, you see he becomes more competent, more confident as well, as a fighter and as a person, and as kids, I don't care what you say, and as someone who works with kids, you see this all the time. Kids are fighting a lot of stuff in their head.
Sure.
Whether it be, from their home life, whether it be, non-ideal situations, or maybe they're just big dreamers. They're fighting insecurities all the time. And being able to rest in the fact that you can daydream and say, I'm going to be as big a hero as the Red Ranger. I'm going to be, so smart like Donatello. I'm going to save the world like Superman. It's something that you see now and you saw then, and when we put that question out there, it's not just us; it's worldwide. It's we really kind of rest. It allows us to put away our insecurities. It allows us to put away our the things that may be troubling us as children, just to dream a little bit. And I think that's kind of what we saw when we put that question.
Well,
out.
it is, and it's like one of those things where if I'm truthful and I'm figuring out who I am. I was a little fat kid, so if anybody, I'm Bulk.
You're Bulk, yeah.
I'm not a Power Ranger. I'm just the fat guy, like off to the side. But in those moments, so you didn't want to pretend to be Bulk. You wanted to be something better. You envisioned of something so much cooler than what you were. And in those moments, especially when you're playing with friends and they're accepting you for that, like they're not like, you're the fat kid. You're supposed to be Bulk. Instead, they're not doing that. Instead, they're like, of course you're the Red Ranger, the leader of the group. Lead us to the fight the putties.
Like it was the first time I remember someone ever looking to me, quote, as a leader. Now, like in 2nd grade, you're not supposed to be a leader.
Sure.
Because you're a kid. But someone says, hey, you're the leader. And that gives you a certain amount of confidence.
It does.
And, even to this day, like, I'm not one to, like, tie in a bunch of stuff from, like, childhood and say, this is the reason. But people look to me now as a leader, in so many different ways.
It's because you wear so much red all the time.
Well, North Johnston colors. But
I just figure, dress for what you want. That's what they did.
Just for what you want to be.
If you wanted to be a Power Ranger, you wore the color of whatever Ranger you were.
But there's a part of me that wonders if a random child in my 2nd grade class did not come up to me and say, hey, you're going to be the leader of the Power Rangers, would I have been so willing or able to become a leader in life?
That's true.
And, it's just little things like that.
You know what that is? That's called a deep dive.
Deep dive. So, anyway, Kyle.
Yes.
After 10,000 years, I'm free.
Okay.
It's time to conquer Earth and discuss our favorite characters from season 1. And in this section, we'll talk about our favorite characters. We'll also have, like a little side conversation and notable guest stars. One of the things I want to point out before we jump into our favorite characters, the characters have personalities, but there's not much of a character arc for them in the first season.
That's true.
They're kind of typical cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Jason's the stoic leader type. Billy's the brains.
Mm-hmm.
Trini is like the translator for Billy's techno babble.
Yep.
Kimberly's the valley girl. Zach's the cool hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Typical character there. But they didn't really have much character arc there.
That's okay. As a 5-year-old, I wasn't looking for character arc.
Exactly. What are some of your favorite characters?
I'll say it changed as the season went on, as more characters became available. But in the beginning, I would have to say probably the Red Ranger, just because of the leadership. He was the cool guy that everybody looked to. But I also liked Zach, the Black Ranger, because of just his style and just how smooth he was with things. Like Jason was very much the leader, smart, respectful ninja guy. But Zach comes along, he does the ninja too.
Zach was cool.
He's so cool while he's doing it.
Yeah.
So definitely, it'd be a tie between those two. But all-time favorite from the season is Green Ranger.
Yeah, of course.
Green was my favorite color as a child. And so once that became available, like I said, more so as a kid, there wasn't a ton of story arc for the characters. It was, which color do you like best? And does that one, fit somewhat what you would like to be? Tommy comes along as the Green Ranger. First off, he's got that awesome dang shield.
Oh my goodness.
That you can't beat that. Like as a child having the toy, I didn't ever have the Green Ranger toy. I had the White Ranger, but he had a shield.
Yes.
And you could take that shield off and put it on your other Rangers.
Yes.
And you thought you were being so original, but just that shield looked so cool on anybody else. It just made that character so much stronger. Even on the episode it touched on.
It made the shield desirable.
Yes.
Because it looked good on anything.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, the one guy who gets to wear it all the time, his stuff, he's desirable.
He stands out more
than
anybody. So honestly, that and the fact he's dragons, he gets a whole dragon
He gets
Zord.
a tiger in the second season, but he gets it based off Godzilla.
Yeah.
It looks so cool.
But
plus his Zord. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
You're good.
But all the other Zords had to combine to make it like
to make Megazord.
The Red Ranger Zord could fight on its own, but the rest of them, let's be honest, were kind of useless in battle.
Well, they all combined together every episode. They rarely ever did it without it.
There were a few episodes, but basically, the Dragon Sword, he didn't need to combine with anything.
He was the same size as the Megazord by himself.
He could, and I'm hitting the stuff here because I'm talking with my hands. He could, but he didn't have to.
No, he came out. So. The dang thing comes out of the ocean and shoots missiles out of its hands. Yeah. His fingertips are missiles, folks. How can you not like the Dragon Zord, the Green Ranger? Well, we get some story arcs later with him, but that was my favorite. He's always been my favorite, even seasons on. Jason David Frank is known, the actor is known as being the most, he's been the most Power Rangers of all time. He's been multiple
He's been in multiple seasons, multiple different colors too.
Yes, and different same character all the way through. But
he actually does get a pretty decent story arc since he's been in so many seasons.
He does.
But in this first season, it's just kid moves in from out of town, and he was evil. Now he's good.
And it's cool to follow him on social media because he embraces it. And the other Rangers do now, too. The other people that play the other actors have grown, and we found out, there's some junk that was not great that happened, and that's taking it lightly.
Stay tuned for the deep dive section, the fun facts.
But there was a lot of stuff like that. But you see these actors and actresses now that get together at Comic-Cons and get, to hang out with each other. The guy that plays Rocky, who takes over the Red Ranger.
Oh, my goodness. Steve Cardaris.
I've seen him at Comic-Con. I haven't seen everyone else. I didn't meet him officially, but I saw him. It's so cool to see.
For the longest time, and again, this is where we put the spoiler warnings up. For the longest time, when we have Ranger reunion episodes where they bring some Rangers from the past, even when they did the all Red Ranger episode in season 10, Rocky was not included in this episode. He was just kind of ignored in favor of Jason, in favor of Tommy. In a recent season, he was brought back as the Red Ranger from his season, and I thought that was just really kind of cool that they've brought him back. How would you rank your Ranger? What would be your order in terms of Ranger? Because I ranked mine, and I'll get mine first, and I'll let you think about it while I'm doing that.
Yeah, do that because I don't know.
My favorites in order.
Okay.
Tommy, the Green Ranger. Zach, Black Ranger. Jason, Red Ranger. Kimberly, my first crush. Mm-hmm. Okay, I had the poster. Okay, like the poster with all the Rangers on it. Mm-hmm. And
did you draw a heart around her?
One time when a friend was staying over, he dared me to go kiss the poster.
I do that all the time,
and I'm like, heck yeah!
And that's not as creepy as it sounds, folks. Like that sounds really creepy, but as a kid, like those things meant stuff to you. I remember, like if you had a crush on a girl in your yearbook, you would draw a heart around it. It's like nobody's ever going to see this.
Now you're a stalker if you do that. Then Trini, and then Billy would be my last one. While you're thinking about your rankings, I want to talk about Bulk and Skull.
Wait a second, you put Billy as your last.
I know.
But you were destined to be him.
I think, like my irritation towards having to be the Blue Ranger on Halloween just made me hate him so much. I can go back and appreciate this first season. Now, Billy does change in the rankings as new Ranger teams form.
Sure,
so when Zach, Jason, and Trini move out in season 2, and you get Rocky, Aisha, and Adam, that does change up the rankings a little bit. So Billy's he started at the bottom, but he ends up around the middle somewhere.
Gotcha.
So,
Bulk and Skull.
Bulk and Skull, used for comic relief in season 1. They actually lasted 6 full seasons.
They did.
Longer than any one main Power Ranger, and they had. You talked about how they were kind of the bullies and the jerks and the dimwits and stuff. But if you look at their character arc, in season, and we can when we get to the other seasons, but they're kind of the bullies and stuff. Season 2, they're not really interested in being bullies. They're trying to find the identities of the Power Rangers. So they're kind of like
they love the Power Rangers.
Yeah, they're big fans of the Power Rangers. And who'd have thought that it's the people that they wanted to torment.
Yeah.
Season 3, they want to become like junior cops. They want to help people like the Power Rangers. Season 4, they actually become junior cops. Season 5, they're doing small odd jobs for people around. And season 6, they actually lead the charge in the final battle in Angel Grove. Kind of completing their arc where they were bullies and jerks, and then in the end they're leaders, leading the Angel Grove citizens against whatever. And I know we just spoiled a bunch of stuff there. Hopefully we'll get to talk about it because there's so much good stuff with Bulk and Skull. But in season 1, they're just kind of bullies and jerks. Goldar and Scorpina, like the two main hench people for Rita. Goldar, this big gold monkey with wing. Well, he got his wings back in season 2. He was a fierce warrior. Scorpina, who in her humanoid form, she had the gold armor, but then when she grew into a giant, she had the evil scorpion look, the kind of a beast. They were just awesome to see in battle.
And just a side note, they put out that Power Ranger movie a few years ago. It definitely wasn't grand, but they're redoing it again now.
Hopefully they get it right.
But Goldar was the main villain in that, and it was such
a
letdown because in the show.
He had a personality. He was dominant, and he
held his own.
He was a bad character. Like, I mean, when I say a bad, I mean he was just someone who was just kind of like oozing like how good of a warrior he was.
Yeah.
It felt like, especially in season 1, if they were able to best Goldar in a one-on-one battle, it felt like an accomplishment.
It wasn't just some giant gold thing. Like he had a character. He was a character. He had personality. He
ended up like kind of losing some of that as the seasons went on because he appeared in several seasons as well. But in this first season, he was like a final boss in a way. I mean, even though he wasn't the main villain, he was the hench person.
Sure.
In the Greenwood Evil story arc, Jason was in this dark dimension without his powers and had to face Goldar and barely escaped. And you felt like such relief because you knew Goldar could have ended him. And he was just kind of toying with because Goldar was like just such a great warrior and such an evil guy. I mean, Goldar was fantastic. So anyway, did you figure out your order?
If I'm being honest, as a kid, probably Tommy and then Kimberly, because I had a giant crush on Amy Jo Johnson to the point that was probably the first actress that I ever figured out what her real name was to realize like, oh, this isn't just a character, this is a real person.
Right.
because Disney put out, in I think like '96, a movie called Susie Q, where she loses her life in a car accident, but she comes back and random other things. But I remember seeing her there and my mind being blown away. She wasn't on Power Rangers anymore at that point, But anyway, back to story. Probably.
So Tommy, Kimberly.
Either Zach or Jason, because like I said, originally at the beginning, they were my favorites.
Okay.
And honestly, probably Billy, then Trini.
Right.
And I say that, no disrespect to Trini, but she just didn't have as much of a personality or characteristics as the rest did. She kind of was more of the shyer character out of the rest, so she didn't stand out.
I mentioned on Twitter to Ashby, who commented, Trini was awesome, but I really wish they would have given her more to do other than being the translator for Billy's techno talk. That's pretty much all she was. Billy would say something that was like really super intelligent, and she would translate it for the rest of the group.
And she did have some story arcs, but a lot of it was really small. Like you said, she did like conquer some fears and stuff. I remember that.
Right, yeah, some of the early episodes.
But,
she had some family involved.
But I don't know. Cool. It just, as a 5-year-old watching, like, it just didn't stand out as much to me.
All right, side conversation.
Yes.
Most memorable monster of the week.
For mine, there's 2 that come to mind first. There's 3 total. And I can breeze through them pretty quick. The first one is the Mighty Minotaur.
Okay.
The reason I thought about him is because on the Sega video game, he was, I think, the final or one of the final villains. He wasn't the final.
We played that game at the Joe Davis Classic last year.
And so I remembered him because, like, he shuffles his feet and storms at you, and you're fighting against him. Because the game wasn't a very advanced game, just like one-on-one fighting.
Yeah.
And but he stood out.
Fun game.
The one that comes to mind most, though, is Pudgy Pig.
Okay. He actually made 2 appearances in the first season.
Yes.
So.
For me, he makes me think of all the others, like, people they ended up fighting.
Like
I went back and found a website today that had all of them listed, and as you clicked on each one, it showed you, a little bio, and it showed you a picture of them. And some of them, it's so cheesy looking now and so crazy, but honestly, a lot of it, like you say, is out of, anime or Godzilla-style things. Just all the different characters, but something that stands out to me too is last year or year before, I was following this guy on Instagram. I don't know how I started following him. I just randomly came across him, but he builds costumes and goes to Comic-Con, and he had built Street Shark costumes, which is like a first of anything. I've never seen anybody build an actual Street Shark costume. But after that, his next goal, or one of the next goals, was he was going to build his own Pudgy Pig. And he ended up building it. But Pudgy Pig, like, he built a costume out of it. And I never noticed it until I saw him building it, that I went back and looked at it. And Pudgy Pig's arms literally come out of his mouth. Like,
wow.
Like the
true,
arms come out. Like, it's literally Pudgy Pig's just a giant pig head for the most part, and his arms come out so he can shove things back into his mouth easier. But he stands out to me, and the only other one that really stood out was Eye Guy.
Eye Guy.
And the only reason he stands out to me is because I had a toy of Eye Guy.
Right.
That's about as much as I remember. He had a bunch of eyeballs, like, literally everywhere.
Eye Guy was one of the first monsters I remember, possibly from the first episode that I ever saw. And that was another one where, like, Billy had a young, like a friend who was also a genius, and Eye Guy was created to kind of torment him or whatever. I remember Eye Guy very well. The Sphinx was early on, with the gray wings, and him and Goldar actually teamed up against the Megazord. Nasty Knight was on Happy Birthday, Zach. Memorable. Those were early memorable monsters. And then, like, Lokar. Lokar was the giant head in the sky that made everything dark.
Yep.
And in the first episode that he was in, he helped, like, give power to Mutitus, who was in the Island of Illusions episode. They were definite favorites. And Lokar, I mentioned he returns in a later episode, Doomsday Part 1 and 2, and he's technically never destroyed. And there's been a lot of fan fiction kind of written about him and Scorpina, who also you never see her end. A lot of fan fiction, how about bringing them back in, like, a later, like, fan made, like, written whatever.
Sure.
But those were probably the most memorable ones. I do have a notable guest star.
Okay.
And we'd be remiss to kind of not mention this. Usually we mention notable guest stars when we talk about television shows. Power Rangers was kind of low budget, so they didn't really have a lot of notable names in the first season, but here's one that definitely stands out. Bryan Cranston, who you may know from Malcolm in the Middle as the dad, Hal, or maybe you know him as portraying Walter White in my opinion, the best TV series of all time, Breaking Bad. But before both...
Or Zordon.
Or Zordon in the last Power Rangers movie. Before both those TV shows were created, Cranston provided the voices to a few of the villains the Power Rangers had to fight off during the first season. He was the voice of Snizzard in the episode Foul Play in the Sky, and of Twin Man in the episode A Bad Reflection on You. So,
nice.
Kyle?
Yes.
You wear a Green Ranger costume, but your loyalty's with Rita.
I am her Green Ranger, and she is my Empress.
She's evil.
Yeah, and so am I. And it would be evil if we didn't share our favorite episodes from season 1. So let's do that.
All right. Great evil Tommy impression there. I texted him last night and said, hey, you get to do a Tommy evil Green Ranger impression. He's like, heck yeah. I wrote down several. A lot of these are
I think we're going to have the same.
Green with Evil series, obviously,
For sure.
is just such a high point. The way they kind of introduce, they're fighting Goldar. All of a sudden, this green guy shows up and kicks their butt. Like, he wipes the floor.
One Ranger takes them all
out. They get back to the command center. Zordon's offline. Alpha's messed up. Green Ranger breaks into the command center, does all this, Then they introduce Scorpina in the third episode of that series. And then I remember the memorable part, I think it was in the episode 4 of that, part 4 of Green with Evil, where you have the Megazord and it's surrounded by Goldar, Scorpina, and giant Green Ranger. While the sun is eclipsing and the Megazord draws its power from solar energy, so it's draining its power. And that was excellent. I also had Island of Illusion.
Okay.
They get sent to this evil dimension. And they have to fight off their greatest fears, or otherwise they'll disappear. And that one's listed for the main reason they Tommy, who normally would just control his Zord, the Dragon Zord, from his flute. He would never go into the actual in the cockpit of the Zord. When they came back from that dimension, Tommy was in the back of the Megazord cockpit because they had the Dragon Zord. But usually, even then, he wouldn't be in there. But this was one of the few episodes he was actually in there. And that was one of the first episodes they combined with Titanus to form the Ultra Zord. I got 2 more.
Go for it.
The Green Candle.
That was one of mine.
Yeah, when Tommy loses his powers.
And it's a really cool episode because the fact Rita's got a candle that pretty much as it burns out, he loses his power. And as he's about to lose it at the very end, he gives his power to Jason, the Red Ranger. So then you see Jason wearing the shield, holding the dagger. It's an iconic thing for me because as a child, to see that shield on someone, like we talked about earlier, to see that shield just made you love it so much more. And so, and that evolved as the season went on, in different ways. But
that episode also had, as his powers were draining, he couldn't really control the Dragon Zord with his Dragon Dagger. So he had to actually jump into the cockpit of the Dragon Dagger to control it in that final battle. While Jason's in that dark dimension trying to save his power. And Zach goes in to get him, and it's just you're waiting for Jason. He's gonna find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And then Zach comes in and says, hey, Tommy needs our help. He's like, if I don't do this, he's not going to lose his power. If you don't come back now, we might not have a Tommy.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, he didn't do it. And it was kind of, in a way, a letdown.
Yeah.
This is the first time, it had a little shocking ending. And then the last one I have is one of the last episodes towards the end of the season, Mighty Morphin Mutants.
Okay.
Where you had this big crab commander and 5 putties who were dressed like Power Rangers. They had tryouts. And so you basically had a Power Ranger versus Power Ranger team.
Because there was also one called A Poor Reflection. That was the same way. That's the one I did. That was the first time they did it. But like you said, they later did it again. Honestly, I don't remember much about the episodes. More so just the fact that you have Power Rangers fighting Power Rangers. It was the coolest thing.
It's really cool.
As a kid to see, if you like 5 Power Rangers, you love 10 Power Rangers. You just doubled, everything that's there. And it was, I feel like one of the episodes at least, it was really hard to tell which was which. But later on, I feel like at least the gloves got darker on the evil ones or whatever. So it was easier to tell which was which. But I don't know. Just for me, that was just an iconic thing. It was an awesome thing to see Power Rangers fighting other Power Rangers, and they're all just in those costumes that I loved so much and wanted one of. So.
Definitely. Do you have any other episodes?
That was it.
Oh man, I took all of yours.
I knew we'd probably run across it.
Any thoughts on those episodes as I...
No, I think you did a great job.
Cool.
Great stuff.
Well, Kyle, we need fun facts and trivia power. We need it now. So let's call upon our Zords, shift into battle mode, and share our 6 favorite insights and observations from this season of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You go first.
Cool. I have a feeling we may have some of the same ones here. Maybe not. I tried to skip around so that I wouldn't. I have a couple just in case. The first one you already mentioned pretty much earlier, just talking about how it was Super Sentai.
Right.
That came from there. So a lot of the battle scenes, a lot of the fight scenes, a lot of the time, anytime you saw the Power Ranger costumes were from the other. There were very few times that actual Rangers were wearing the costumes.
Yes.
Or at least with the helmets on anyway.
Right. Notable fact, in the first season, they never took their helmets off with the suits. They didn't start doing that until season 2.
Okay. So that explains
you never
even
saw
more.
them without their helmets on in the suits.
And so they did that, but even as a kid didn't catch this. It was when I was older. It was probably middle school or even high school that I caught it. See, I'm stealing one of yours.
The first one of mine.
But the Yellow Ranger in Super Sentai was actually a male character. But you didn't realize that just because Trini played the Yellow Ranger, and you just assumed that. But the way you may have noticed as you got older is you look back on this, the Yellow Ranger, her costume doesn't have a skirt, and the Pink Ranger does.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean you have to, wear a skirt if you're a woman. It doesn't mean that. But what it means is in the original series, that's how they distinguished the two of them. So that was a male character. And it was honestly kind of weird to go back and look and just, first it's weird to see the actors that played the Power Ranger, Super Sentai anyway, because you're so used to seeing, your Power Rangers here in America. So it is a little bit different.
Right.
But that's one of the big things that just as a kid, it blew my mind to not have ever noticed that.
Wow. You definitely stole my fact there. The only thing I would add there is later seasons of Power Rangers would have a wider variety in terms of colors worn by different genders. Mm-hmm. I think the first one was Power Rangers Ninja Storm had a blue female ranger and a yellow male ranger.
Yep.
So anyway, number 2, the original series of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was given a 40-episode run. However, due to its unforeseen popularity, an alternate ending was given to the last 2 episodes entitled Doomsday, which I mentioned earlier with Lokar. Originally, like its Super Sentai counterpart, the evil witch Bandora, Rita in the American version, was going to resurrect her deceased son Kai using the power of Great Satan, who's Lokar. Great names for the Japanese stuff, by the way. And was going to drive the colossal driving force Dora Talos, which is the Zord's Cyclopsis that Goldar ends up
teaming up with
driving. Yep. Instead, the episode was a somewhat less dramatic climax with the robot being given to Grifazor, which is Goldar. And the Rangers at the end of Doomsday Part 2 were given the option of keeping or giving up their powers. None of them resigned. Now, Saban, of course, was pleased at the ratings and was eager to create more episodes, but the series had exhausted all the monsters used in the original Sentai Zoo Ranger. So he contacted the Toei Corporation, which is the company that produces Super Sentai, and they asked for more Zoo Ranger footage. So the companies agreed, and 25 episodes worth of new costumes were created, and in-suit battle and mecha fighting scenes were filmed in Japan. The footage was created and sent to America, where it was spliced with the American footage in a similar fashion to the rest of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers before it. Deep dive fans of the Super Sentai refer to that footage as Zoo 2 footage.
Okay.
So, number 3.
Number 3 for me is more of just a real world thing, but the Power Rangers or the actors that filmed at the time was not a part of a union. I'm stealing all of Eric's tonight.
Don't you read my scripts whenever I send them out there? So you,
I literally told you I deleted it so that I would not see.
Next time, make sure you don't steal my facts.
No, because it's.
Do you think Mallory Rubin steals Jason Concepcion's facts on binge mode? No,
I'm about to say I don't know either of those.
See, I'm going to start giving you your facts.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Because that's not fun.
It's not fun for. I have to look up. I had an alternate fact, and you stole 2 of my 3. You probably are going to steal the 3rd one.
I've got 5 facts because I figured we may have some of the same.
Just go.
But it was revealed by Amy Jo Johnson that they received payments as low as $600 a week. So these actors and actresses that played on this gigantic star of a movie or a show that turned into multiple movies and other things. They received as low as $600 a week sometimes just because they weren't union. They didn't have anything set up. I think things got better for them as it went later on, but there were a lot of issues, on the side of things because of that. Fact number 4. Go, Eric.
If you're going to read it, read a lot of stuff. Okay, here's
I do a quick fact. I don't deep dive.
Fact. Well, here's the thing. I don't. You didn't do all of my fact there, so
go for it.
I'll do the other half of that fact. On the other side of that coin, one Ranger was fired before the series was even started. In the casting group that originally made the final cut, it included a Yellow Ranger that many may not know. Her name was Audrey Dubois, and she played Trini first. She had all the characteristics and making of a good Ranger, but it did not go as planned. Walter Jones, the Black Ranger Zach, told Fusion that she was a really tough martial artist, that she was really strong, she was Latin, and then she asked for more money, and after the pilot, she got fired, and they hired Thuy Trang instead. You can actually find the original pilot on YouTube.
I've never seen it.
It actually, instead of the Juice Center, it takes place in a bowling alley, and there's more bullies. There's like 4 bullies instead of 2. Instead of bulk and skull, there's actually 2 more. And
check that out.
And the Rangers actually get in a legitimate fight before they get called to the command center. So it's really interesting. Number 5.
Will I steal your last fact?
Probably.
Does your last one involve Walter Jones?
It does not.
See, we're good then.
Okay.
Walter Jones, who played the Black Ranger, lost his middle finger in an unspecified accident.
I'm really glad I left this one because that was originally going to be one of mine.
See, when he was 4 years old, he lost his finger, and we never noticed. But going back and watching footage today, I saw it multiple times how he's missing a finger. I saw him in the movie Brink that I talked about that I love. He was in there. Totally didn't notice he was missing a finger. But yes, go back and look now. You probably will not be able to not see it now.
It's really obvious whenever he's morphing. One side of the hand or things have all the things, and one's missing. So yeah, was that your number 5?
That was it.
Cool. Number 6. Despite not being truly one of the original Power Rangers, Tommy Oliver quickly became the show's breakout character. He first debuted in the 17th episode of the show's first season, but it wouldn't be long before the Green Ranger was leading the team. But that being said, that was not the show's original plan. Tommy was supposed to be written off the show at the end of the season to stay in line with the original Super Sentai storyline. And that storyline, the Green Ranger was, he didn't lose his powers. He died in the Super Sentai. But,
they don't play around over there.
Apparently not. Japanese kids are apparently made of, sterner stuff than the rest of the world because they really didn't play with that. But when producers found out just how much of a hit the character was, they brought him back. First the Green Ranger, and then again later in the next season as the White Ranger. A couple other things to go along with the Green Ranger now that we're mentioning him. You'll notice that in a lot of the episodes, it's going to be the core 5 taking on the monster, while Tommy left his communicator in the locker. Or maybe he's working out and he doesn't notice his communicator's going off. That's done because in the Japanese footage, the Green Ranger, there does not show up until much later in the battle, and they didn't want to overuse that footage because they only had a limited amount of that footage to use. And then one more thing, Green Ranger related. You ever notice that whenever the Green Ranger's fighting the monsters, he has this really awesome looking shield. But when they're in the command center, he has this really cloth looking shield. It's a terrible replica.
I've never noticed that.
Well, it's a really obvious one.
I've never looked for it.
It looks really great in the original Super Sentai footage, but then when you go to the original American footage, it's like this floppy paper nightmare that couldn't really defend you. It didn't look that awesome. Saban either had their props shipped over, made them in studio, or tried to splice them together to get a footage to make it look like, the American suit actors and that monster are totally fighting each other, but
sure.
The Dragon Shield was unfortunately damaged in transit, and they had to kind of cobble one together.
Okay.
For their original American footage. So I'm going to find a picture while you do social media shout-outs in a second, so you can see the comparison between the two. And you'll be like, oh, yeah, wow.
What comes to mind is the big puffy-looking one, which I assume is him fighting everybody else. Or I guess the battle footage. But I don't know. Jumping to shout-outs?
Yep. Kyle, if you had your Power Morpher, you could get out of here.
What's your point?
Come and get it, if you're brave enough. But before you do, let's visit from our loyal listeners and see what they have to say on our social media shout-outs.
You guys were awesome today. It's probably not the fact that it's us. It's probably the fact that you love Power Rangers, or it really connected with you as a kid. But thanks so much for reaching out and commenting. We're going to go down the list real quick. Brandon Barbie said he loved the Power Rangers. And now, thanks to Netflix, my kids have had the chance to enjoy the original Power Rangers as well. He said it sucked at Christmas, though, when he wanted His son now wanted, or his kids now wanted, the now very collectible $250 Megazord. Friend Gene said, I still have my black Power Ranger costume my mom made for me when I was 5 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
He said, also, remember that episode of TMNT crossover?
Season 6.
We'll talk about it.
We'll get to it at some point.
Let's see. Laura Daniels Davis says, my favorite, I remember watching it at my grandma's all the time. We would play Power Rangers too. I was usually the pink one because at the time I liked pink. Now I know better. Yellow all the way. Laura's our good friend, and we know that she does not really care for the color pink, so it was a little surprising.
Not anymore. A little surprising, yeah.
Michael Thompson said the best part of the school day was getting out and racing to my grandma's house to watch Power Rangers. My favorite was, of course, Tommy the Green Ranger, even had the Dragonzord flute. I don't remember much about the day my brother was born, as I was 7 years old, but I do distinctly remember my mom giving me a Power Rangers VHS so I would have something to watch while they dealt with a screaming infant. Definitely a good time.
Great parenting. I love it.
Devon/Jenny Varnum said, I wanted to be the Pink Ranger so badly. Go Power Rangers.
Pretty sure that's Jenny.
But maybe it's Devon. We'll ask on
We'll
Sunday.
ask him tomorrow, maybe.
Chris Rode, a great listener, follower from the very get-go, Chris Rode, says, I remember watching the first episode that had Pudgy Pig on it.
Pudgy Pig, shout out.
He did. Said, that Christmas, I got all the Power Rangers action figures, and I accidentally tore off Billy's arm. Of course, it would be the Blue Ranger.
Of course.
And the Power Ranger I wanted to be was the White Ranger. I mean, come on. Who didn't want a talking sword, and the White Tiger Zord was the best.
It was pretty awesome.
We'll
And we'll talk more about that in season 2.
Let's see. Chris Rode also said, if you have time, NPR's Guy Raz interviewed Chaim Saban on how I built this. And it was a fascinating listen. Sorry for plugging another podcast on your podcast Facebook page.
That's okay.
That's okay. We're supportive of everybody.
Yes, we are.
With that in mind, check out The Toys That Made Us on Netflix.
Yes.
They do one of the Power Rangers. I think it recently was released this year with Ninja Turtles as well. But they talked to Saban a lot, and there's a lot of great details about the show, getting it made, how things worked, and then getting the toys made at the same time.
It's insane.
Great stuff.
I'm going to have to check that out. I need Netflix.
It's worth getting Netflix to watch that. And then Jordan Edgerton said, what a show. Favorite memory has to be the Green Ranger, hands down. Tommy set the show off.
Yeah, Jordan's spot on with that. Absolutely.
You want to read Ashby's? Do you have that handy?
No, I sent it to you for a reason.
I've got it.
I sent you 2 for a reason because, you're a social media shout-out person. I don't steal your stuff like you do my fun facts.
I'm just checking. Penny Starks Metcalf. Did I say her name right?
Yes, you did.
Nice. I remember when it aired, that's all everyone could talk about in elementary school, and everyone wanted to play Power Rangers on the playground. While everyone wanted to be the Pink Ranger, I wanted to be Rita.
That's awesome,
It is.
by the way. And I can totally picture that. It's really awesome.
Then Ashby Brame says, I was the Yellow Ranger because Pink was too girly, obviously.
Imagine that.
Hold on. I know we had one more, and let me see.
Is it under your personal page?
I think it's my personal page.
Okay. While you're looking at that, here's the picture of the Green Ranger suit shield in the Japanese footage. And then here is the shield in the American footage.
Oh, man, I see the difference.
It's a huge difference. So we'll have to post both of those pictures whenever the time comes. So.
And then here's a whole nother round that was on my personal one. I thought we had more. Here we go. Tim Hutchinson says, coming home from school to watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a favorite memory from my childhood. I had a bunch of the action figures and Zords from various seasons. Casey Hudson Moore said, Power Rangers were the best. I remember playing them in elementary school near the big tree at Old Glendale Kinley Elementary. Of course, I was Kimberly, the Pink Ranger.
Of course.
It was cool to say that because Casey and I are the same age, and immediately when she said something about playing Power Rangers, I immediately thought of that giant tree out there at the old schoolyard. So
yes,
it's all the memories tie together. Hunter Batten, I think Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was on when I was in the 3rd grade, maybe. But I distinctly remember my classmates being really into it and me being very stubborn about my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fandom. But I secretly enjoyed watching the Power Rangers after school and wouldn't admit it to anyone. And I was totally jealous of anyone who had the Morphin Megazord toys.
Yes. I never had the Megazord, but my cousin did. He had the individual Zords, and
They made the actual Megazord.
And that was really cool. So,
Hunter also commented in, TMNT is greater than MMPR, just so you know. Yeah. Kelly Sperry says, watched every afternoon after school. I wanted to be the Pink Ranger so bad. Let's see.
You noticed that no one wants to be the Blue Ranger.
You did whenever you was
No, I didn't.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Jordan and Jess Creech. Loved Billy the Blue Ranger.
There we go.
Blue was my favorite color, and I love that he used his brain to outwit the monsters.
That's awesome.
So let me just check one more thing just to make sure I did not miss anything else. But thank you guys really a whole lot for tuning in this week. You guys are awesome.
Y'all have stepped it up twice or 2 weeks in a row where we've had so many comments. Next week's episode when we talk about the Royal Rumble won't have any comments because we didn't put anything about that. But
I figured Power Rangers was more
Power Rangers is definitely more popular than the Royal Rumble. So, but we really appreciate all the support. Again, check back on What Media, Facebook and Instagram, and WTW_media on Twitter for our questions whenever we do podcast recording. So thank you again. All right, friends. It's that time. A big thank you to Rickie, Liles, and Tim Hutchinson, our wonderful and irreplaceable producer and researcher. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion as much as we did and that you're as pumped as we are for the rest of this journey into pop culture and nostalgia. Next week, we are discussing the WWE Royal Rumble on a special Sunday episode. This is going to come out Sunday.
Yes.
To coincide with the 2020 WWE Royal Rumble. Until next time, there are 3 rules for being a podcaster. Number 1, never use your podcast for personal gain. Number 2, never escalate a battle unless Rickie forces you to. And number 3, always keep your identity secret. No one may know that you're a podcaster. I think we've really kind of messed up these rules for podcasting.
We've ruined this all.
Stay as cool as the other side of the pillow, and we will see you next week.
What the what?
Bye!